I work with a lot of players that are stuck at a rank, whether they're stuck in Emerald, stuck in Master Tier, stuck in Silver, all ranks, all servers, even all roles. I see it all the time. The recurring trend, the recurring pattern is this whole idea that it's not about if you win or lose that game. It doesn't matter how much LP you gain, how much LP you lose, what your MMR is, how good your OPGG looks after the game. I don't give a shit. What matters is how you conducted yourself in that win or loss. What did you do inside that win or loss that led to particular outcomes occurring? And today we're going to be exploring what I perceive to be one of the most toxic, kind of recurring mental hurdles, mental narratives, and beliefs that needs to be shut down, negated, overcome in order to progress through the ranks and overcome plateaus. And so, speaking transparently, I've been playing jungle secondary on a lower elo account, roughly sitting in high diamond, low master. And I've been doing this to make some content inside the academies around how to learn set your secondary role properly or how to role swap in the most efficient, healthy way possible. But in the process of doing so, it's really unlocked a few interesting things for me in terms of kind of contextualizing why people really struggle to accept the reality of, again, focusing on how you conduct yourself rather than the end result. And so what I've realized is that League tricks you. League, you've got to be very careful. It gaslights you. And so this was my very first game of jungle that I've played in years. 12-1 pop-off game as Nefiri. Now, people would look at this and be like, oh, you must have smurfed it. You must have played really well. They would look at that scoreline and think, or even maybe they played a game like that and think, I'm the fucking best. I'm the greatest. Oh my God, this role is so easy. But the reality is that I knew I played like shit. I got lucky. I had winning lanes. The skirmishes kind of played themselves. It was just very opportunistic. My first 8 minutes were atrocious. And of course they were going to be. I hadn't played jungle in ages. My jungle pathing was terrible. My sequencing was shit. My resets were bad. My tempo was bad. I fundamentally made incorrect decisions one after the other and just lucked out. And I kind of knew that going into it. Of course I was going to play like shit. Of course my jungle fundamentals were going to be bad. It's the first jungle game I've played in literally years. But I wasn't allowing myself to get kind of gaslit by the fact that I went 12-1. I wasn't confused. I wasn't anchoring on this game. And as a result, take a look at this. This was my first 4 games. I got that 12-1 pop-off game, and then I got obliterated in my next 3 games. But that didn't really surprise me. That was always the way, in my mind, that was always the way it was going to be, because I knew that I simply just got lucky. The way I conducted myself in that win was fundamentally unsustainable. My fundamentals were terrible. My mental stack was overwhelmed. I had strong side lanes, yada, yada, yada. But what I've realized, and this is kind of the thing that I realized, is that people they're so reactive, or they get so tunnel vision and anchored over whether or not they win a game that they start kind of drawing these crazy bold conclusions from just a few wins or losses. They win a game and they think they're the best. They think that everything they're doing must be amazing. They have a great scoreline. They think they must have played out of their mind, or they lose a bunch of games and they think that they must have played like shit. But we got to realize that sometimes you can play absolutely amazing League of Legends, the best League of Legends ever, beautiful fundamentals, high quality decisions, and still lose. You can play absolutely terrible League of Legends, poor fundamentals, get lucky, stars align, and win. The fact that that is the case, it's this giant kind of unspoken law of League of Legends that is just not really understood. It's not really well understood inside the League community. And so it kind of leads me into this whole kind of thing about, like, what does it actually mean to focus on the outcome over decisions? Like, what sort of language how does this manifest inside the League community? And what I see is things like this. Oh, if only my jungler didn't mess up that Baron smite. So they'll go to in their VOD review, they'll go to that 35-minute Baron fight, and they'll tunnel vision on their jungle missing their smite, and then blame that as the reason as to why they lose the game. Or they will, say, oh, if my bot lane didn't die here, we could have ended the game. Or I would have been so close to platinum after this game. Or now I've lost 4 in a row. I must be playing bad. I'm nearly back to the rank that I was last week. I'm just going to have to take a break and play on a second account. All of this is showing to me that we're not really getting into the details. We're not taking max accountability. We're not concerned with how we're conducting ourselves on the Rift. Instead, we're trying to claw ourselves to the next rank. We're just trying to, we see this rank and we're like, if only I just get more games in there, if only I just, pull the slot machine lever just one more time or just another block of 3, I promise I can get there. It's this kind of gambling mentality where it's like you get addicted to seeing the LP and you're just hoping, just go again. I just hope these mistakes don't happen again. I just hope that I get better teammates. I just hope that the stars align. It's like, if you're relying on hope, you're relying on gaming the system, you're relying on, stars aligning, you're not going to get anywhere. You're slapping a Band-Aid solution upon a Band-Aid solution on a Band-Aid solution. Wake up, right? This is really the reality of this video. You need to wake up. And so what does it mean? Like, what should we do instead, right? That's the real question. What should we do instead? This is where taking max accountability and understanding when the train derailed kind of mindset really kicks in. So for me, when I'm learning, learning my secondary role, learning jungle, for me, I was trying to figure out, when did I feel as though the game didn't make sense anymore? So I was actually utilizing the Jungle Academy content. I'm learning my first clear, learning how to clear the camps, learning my champion's reference points, learning what my champion wants to do. And at some point, the game just wouldn't make sense anymore. I fucked up something, like something just didn't make sense. And the game just turned to shit. So what my job was, whether or not, that game, it ended in a win, a loss, a 15-minute FF, a 15-minute win, I wasn't really concerned with that. What I was concerned with is how did I conduct myself throughout that game? And most importantly, when did the game stop making sense to me? When did the game feel like it went down this alternate reality, this alternate path where the game was just ultra hard mode? And how did I contribute to that? And so rather than talking about it, I want to kind of show an example of one of my recent reviews and how, again, I'm constantly bringing it back to how I'm conducting myself rather than the end result. So this was the state of one of my jungle games. I had kind of split the map. I traded off my Kayle. I played bot side, got my AD carry and my support really quite far ahead. We've got true dragon stacking. We've got the bot tower doing a very good job. And I knew that this game was all about me playing with my Jhin, playing with my Elise, and kind of trying to stack dragons, right? That was what I perceived to be the win condition. And so anyway, I'm playing the game. I come off this deployment here, and I kind of lose my focus, or I felt a bit confused about what I should do here. And then this play breaks out on top side, and I end up kind of compensating for my team. I end up seeing these spam pings on the Talia, do this terrible engage, gaslight my team here, kind of bait them in, and I die. My team dies, and the game from this point was extremely difficult because now my Jhin had died, my Elise had died, the Kai'Sa got a double kill, was back in the game. We're now entering this giant power trough. Yone's really screwed. Kale's getting shit on. The game became really hard. Now, we won this game. We won this game in like 37 minutes. It turned into an absolute slugfest, but we won. The reality is I'm not really too concerned about, a coin flip team fight at 35 minutes. For me, what I was concerned about is, when did the game derail? When did the game start feeling incredibly difficult? And for me, that timeline, it was at this 14-minute mark. That was the moment where the game shit the bed. That's when the game entered an alternate reality. Now, that's not to say that there aren't really other things that I could have taken away from this game, but this was the major pivotal moment where, like, I knew that the game was kind of like, I had to be more reactive now. I've lost sight of the win condition. The game is now ultra hard mode. We're bleeding prior everywhere. It just felt like I was playing a different game. And the reality is that people they might, exit this game, they win the game, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's it. I must have played really well. Or they don't concern themselves about how they won this game or what they did well and what they got lucky with. They're just tunnel visioning on that end result. What I'm concerned with is, what exactly is replicable? What can I replicate about this game? And what do I need to avoid in future games? Because the reality is that I'm going to be in many, 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 many different game states. I'm not really too concerned about the result as much as I'm concerned with how I actually came to that conclusion. What variables led to this kind of end result? What inputs led to a particular output? And when you started like kind of shifting your mindset from, again, the LP, the win-loss, the rank, to how did I conduct myself? How did I contribute to this game state? When did the game stop making sense to me, and kind of really start getting into the details? That's when you're not entering the casino anymore. We're not entering the slot machine in it anymore. It almost feels like now we're entering the gym where we're slowly building up strength, where we're slowly kind of getting 1% better every single game. And that needs to be the mentality that we need to replace this kind of slot machine mentality with. And just kind of going back to this little bit of an example here, as you get better at the game, and for me in my jungle journey, I started nailing down my first 8 minutes. So then every single game, regardless if it ended up in a win or loss, I felt very confident and competent with my first 8 minutes because I understood the fundamentals, I understood my champ's reference points, my champ's identity, and then I would push my review further. And it's like, okay, well now I'm actually getting better at transitioning into the mid game. And then now I'm getting a little bit better at transitioning kind of into the later stages of the mid game now. And all I'm doing is building that competence and confidence in my ability to replicate good quality game states up until the point where I'm just winning majority of my games in a very replicable, clean manner. I'm going to climb LP and then rinse repeat. And so again, this mentality of kind of like, when did the train derail, is such a healthy kind of practical methodology for identifying how you're contributing to that particular game state. And look, this is the reality. The side effect of this mentality is that I'm untiltable. Whether someone adds me after the game and talks shit about me, I don't give a fuck. Right? The reality is that I know, regardless of what happens in that game, I'm going to walk away from it being 1% better. I'm going to be a better version of myself than I was before. And that's where confidence and kind of becoming untiltable really comes into play, because I'm not reacting to how many wins or losses I've had. Whether I've won 3 in a row, lost 3 in a row, 5 in a row, lost 5 in a row, I don't give a shit. It doesn't bother me, because again, it's about what I'm learning from each and every game and how I'm conducting myself on the Rift in each and every one of those games. Now, to take this one step further, this is the reality of what I see on a day-to-day basis. This was from a recent Mid Lane Academy review. Someone brought this game state, right? And this is the game state. So they were 0-4 top laner. Their bot laner was struggling. You can see 4-1 Scion, 4-0 Smolder. And look, this Syndra player was doing a pretty good job. They were doing okay, not amazing, but doing pretty good. And it was all about them and the Rek'Sai. Now, I'm not saying they can't win this game, but it was a game that they played pretty well. Sure, there was a few kind of trading optimizations and maybe some warding and leaning, some threat assessment. But for the most part, it was just a very, very, very hard game. And it wasn't the reason they were sitting in Diamond 4. I could tell them that much. And then after, I'm like, okay, out of interest, I'm going to take a look at their OPG. And this is the OPG that I saw. They had games that were 10-15, 3-7, 5-10, 9-8. And then it got me thinking, why would they bring this game? Why would they bring this game where they played pretty well, they did okay, and they slowly bled out? Why not bring one of these games where they went like 5-10, 9-8, 10-15? Why are they showing me this? And I think, I think what I'm noticing about the league community is that people are struggling to accept the reality of like their underlying level of play from a fundamental perspective. They're looking at these games where they die a bunch in the early game. They're ignoring the issue. They're focusing on the games where they felt as though they could have won, rather than, again, obsessing over, how do I increase my consistency? Why am I having a game where I'm going 11-3 and then 10-15? Like, why is that the case? Well, the reason that is the case is that you're making some giant fundamental errors. There is something wrong in your fundamental inputs that needs to be addressed. Let's not worry about the upper end of your bell curve. Let's concern ourselves with the lower end of your bell curve. Let's actually increase your skill floor rather than increase your skill ceiling. And I think at a community kind of level, I noticed that everyone is always trying to learn these like 1%ers or squeak. Like, how could I have got that Baron at 35 minutes? How could I have, done this tower dive at 38 minutes? Or what could I have? What's that sexy little thing that I can add to my gameplay that's going to give me the edge? But then you look at their first 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes, and it's like, well, mate, your entire first 12 minutes is a coin flip. You don't know your matchup. Your resets are terrible. The way you're fundamentally conducting yourself in the entire early to mid game is for the most part a complete coin flip. And right, so not to say you can't win games like that, but you're not going to have any consistency. And so I think that the message that I'm trying to push here, again, it's not about if you win or lose. It's about how you conduct yourself in those wins. And I think what happens is they get lucky with those poor fundamentals and they completely neglect all of the moments where they did get lucky. It's this failure to identify or be honest with themselves when they actually did get lucky inside of a game. And so I want to kind of wrap up this video with this whole, or one or two more slides, but one of my favorite kind of concepts is making the enemy sweat for LP, because people are going to say straight away, well, Curtis, what are you saying? Are you saying that you make one mistake and then you should just give up and lose the game? No. What I'm saying is that in the post-game review, if you've made really bad errors, don't concern yourself with this alternate reality at 36 minutes where the game's completely fucked. Concern yourself about why was the game in that position in the first place. But in game, when you're literally playing the game itself, the mentality that you need to enter is, how do I make the enemy sweat for LP? So the way I view it is this, right? When you're playing the game, most games, you're going to have clarity, or at least have some sort of a win condition, right? There's going to be a win condition. Maybe you're doing well, your top lane or bot lane, someone's doing well, and you kind of have a rough idea about how to win. But then let's say shit hits the fan. You make a few errors, your team is doing poor, whatever, and there is no win condition anymore. You don't know how to win the game anymore. At that point where I don't know how to win the game anymore, then I'm saying, okay, cool. I probably am going to lose this game, but you know what? I'm going to really make them earn their LP here. I'm going to be hard to kill. I'm going to trade off neutral objectives. I'm going to really be intentional with my wards, intentional with my deployments, intentional with my resets. And yes, I might still lose this game, but if you can enter this mentality, it's really going to, again, really make the other people earn their LP, and you'd be surprised at how many games you can win. This is not really kind of super relevant to this video, but I just wanted to kind of sneak it in as a more positive note, something you can practically implement in your solo queue. So a few key messages: stop trying to claw your way to a rank, right? Stop trying to just squeeze out that last little 1% of the top end of your skill, your LP bell curve, and start really working on your foundation. Start working on the consistency of your early game. And do you really want to look like a great player, or do you want to be a great player? And the only way to be a great player in League of Legends is to understand that it's about how you conduct yourself in every single point of the game. It's not about if you win or lose. It's about how you win or lose. And be honest with yourself when you do get a little bit lucky. And yes, we all get lucky, right? Stars align. But don't rely on getting lucky, because that's where you enter that addictive gambling slot machine mentality. A few things to think about. Let me know your thoughts. It's something that I felt as though was quite relevant. Otherwise, I'll see you for another video soon. Cheers.